protected him. Mm-hmm. And I think right there, if I had just let him get arrested, like, I don't know, that's the night. That's the night. I mean, I brought him home. I let him use my altars. He was so broken. He was so dying. And there's a good story there, too, that takes place because I got him back home to St. Charles, to the apartments on the corner there, like the legendary apartments on Randall and 64.
Yeah, Walnut Manor.
Yeah, I got him back home there. He was still, like, really broken up. He was living with two guys. They were both, like, grocers at Jewel. Mm-hmm. I'm just laying the framework. There's, like, a whole story that I can weave through there really quick. Like, but I'm just, like, kind of establishing it. But yeah, Corey's very important. So help me out. Help me get back. We were saying that. Why was I talking about Corey?
Yeah, didn't he have some kind of freak out with her at some point?
Well, yeah, but I don't want to start there. I don't want to start there.
How did they meet each other?
I believe Corey actually got a job at the Italian restaurant he was at. So it was total coincidence.
And this is while we were out in Washington.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you guys come back for the reunion show while he's with Corey.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's a great reunion show on Route 64, right above the shops in downtown St. Charles. They got the patio out back. And you guys blow that place up, and it's pure. It's real. Like, everybody's dancing. It's all like we've never left. It was so real.
Yeah, that was at Cameron's place. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At his apartment, yeah.
That was as good as it got. It was so pure. Like, we all had come back together. It was total healing. Like, nobody cared about the past. I mean, maybe we were carrying chips on our shoulders or pain. But we really didn't care. We were just so happy to dance again and to hear the music. Yeah, that was a good night.
Yeah.
Cool. But so he was with Corey. I mean, just keep saying it. They met at the Italian restaurant.
Okay.
And we were talking about him winning the lottery. There it is.
Yeah.
And he's with Corey, and he buys some suits, and he even kind of goes a little bit GQ for a while, like for a couple of weeks, and he's got like this idea of Nick's Fish Market in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And me and my wife, 26 years later, we're still together, but George lived with us, and certainly my wife is part of that story.
Yes.
Because he was living with us while we got married. I mean, I gave him a letter when I left on Friday. I was like, dude, if you're still here whenever I get back, you are dishonoring me on my wedding day. I laid it like that thick because there was a lot of money being spent on freebasing at the time. I mean, I don't think he'd be ashamed of that. That was happening. He was borrowing my car to go out and get more. I had to hide the keys. I was telling him no more. There's stories around like that, and he still was pissed off at me whenever I kicked him out of the house. He still came back. I'm not bearing grievances. This is brotherhood. He still came back to the house and told me how I wasn't ready to have a kid and how I needed to man up and how I needed to do all this stuff and how I needed to be this person. And maybe that helped me. I don't know. I thought I was already there, but he was always ready to tell me how I was the problem, and that's just how it was,
Yeah.
But I loved him completely.
Yeah.
And it was hard to know that he was out there whenever I kicked him out of the house. He found a place to go, but he didn't have the courtesy to tell me that he had found a place. He made me believe he was out in the snow, So, but anyway, that's irrelevant.
No, it shows some shit. It's true shit. We've talked about this kind of stuff before too, where he had a way of fucking putting it in your ass when you're trying to help.
Yeah.
Yes. We all loved him like a brother, but Jesus Christ, he could be a real ornery son of a bitch, gnarly to deal with and shit, and didn't give a fuck about collateral damage at times either, man, or intended to do that. Yes,
right,
man.
because it was what was best for you, because that's what worked for him.
Yeah.
You know, it's all he knew.
Yeah, it was like
and that was fine.
Tough love. You're like, Jesus, your love is fucking a little dangerous at times, brother.
Yeah, but it was all good. I mean, my story, like, I'll give you an example. It doesn't end in 1995 whenever I kicked him or asked him to leave, like, with no exception.
You wouldn't be the first, nor would you be the last at that point to tell him to fucking hit the bricks. It's cool.
Yeah.
We all know what that's like.
He still called on somebody that was like a mutual brother to drive his van out, and, still like took the time to play a drum in the room he was vacating for 40 minutes before he left to make sure that I knew that shit was going to go bad for me because of his magic drum, So.
What a dick.
You're going to get yours, you motherfucker.
40 minutes.
At the very least, you're getting 40 minutes of my fucking drumming on your ass. Fucking pissing you off. Yeah, on the way out. Yes.
Right. Pull away in a van.
Very mature. It's a very mature way to do it. Oh,
with my wife in the house.
Of
course. With a baby in her stomach. Yeah. Ovatala what?
Hey. Like, you son of a bitch, get out.
So at any rate, when he won that money, he didn't just like better himself. It was like quite an experience too. He went downtown to Chicago to score some
fun
of the things that he was having whenever you were at the Oscar Swan with him and his friends. But this time, someone pulled a gun on him, and they pulled the trigger with the gun to his head, and the bullet did not go in his head. He had a split right down the front of his. I mean, you could see it. He didn't go to a doctor or anything. He just pressed it together, but he had a scar for like weeks. They pulled a gun to his head, pulled the trigger, but the bullet didn't go in. So he comes home, and he decides that everything he's been doing with his life, like spiritually and the protections and like everything that he has going on, is so real that he cannot die. So for the next 2 weeks, he's like testing it, and I'm there with him, and my wife is there with him. And we have a friend in from the UK that's with us. And he's doing things like climbing out across the Fox River by Route 64 under the railroad bridge that goes across it. Just climbing out, no support, no cables, just climbing across the river. Climbs out halfway, and of course starts taunting you that he's having a really hard time and that you need to save him. But he like ended up like climbing all the way back to like safety. But just like pulling stuff like that all the time, testing your heart to the maximum, And I guess I value him for it. It was awesome to have that kind of a brother, But yeah, he was real. So I don't understand why the whole world doesn't know about him and juxtapose. I really don't. I really don't. Like, I love you guys, and it's like an honor to have been a part of the music and the experience. Like, it was real music that still plays in my mind, music that I still want to dance to. I mean, when you guys created the Family in a Factory, it like started with just like, 8 to 12 people. It was quickly about 30 people. But within 6 to 9 months, the whole community had posters, and Damn You Productions was happening. I mean, one of the sandwich show out there, whenever we painted I Johnny completely white, like, I mean, it was so good that people that had no business wanting their kids to have you guys as role models were like excited for you guys to mentor their children in their dreams. You guys were amazing. And I mean, I know that's all fanboyish and that like it should be embarrassing. There is no other truth. It was amazing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, I never saw myself as amazing. I mean, I always imagined myself as amazing. And I guess that's what drove me to want to be the best I could when we did that stuff. And it was more out of passion, I think, that we all kind of did what we did, you know.
For
And,
sure.
Oh yeah.
But you know, it's like a chemistry thing. Like, we had the nucleus of it before we got Chris in the band. I mean, obviously the Family in the Factory was there, it existed, we had done iterations of it, but there was always this, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but there's
you bring up
an energy or a spirit to it that is hard to describe. I don't know, it was larger, it felt like it was driving the thing.
you know, when I realized that how awesome we were was when we had our first band, you know, aside from you, Brad, was Chris Martin's brother, Dion. You remember Dion?
Oh yeah.
He would come over by himself or with his girlfriend.
Oh yeah.
And he would just like flex his muscles when we play and just like scream.
Oh yeah.
And I always kind of looked up to him, you know, because he was older than me, and I just thought he was a badass. And when I saw him like freaking out to our music, I knew something was good about it, you know, because I was like, he would just go nuts when he heard that music play, man.
Neon,
yeah, I'll tell you.
Neon Dion, man. He was
Dion, yeah.
Just flex on us.
Oh yeah, and he was muscular. He was all muscle. And I'll tell you what, you talk about his girl, his woman, like inseparable. And I'll say it for Chris Martin, like he would always say, and I mean, it like taught me something about like love in my little like 17-year-old mind. He was like, man, Dion's girl loves him so much. She loves his like sweat. She loves how he smells. That's how much Dion's girl loves him. He would always like tell us that, like he just really admired that. Like,
oh yeah, I do remember that.
How she loves how he smells.
Yeah,
he'd go up on the balcony and like scream and just like flex.
Juxtapose!
Mm-hmm.
Man.
We had like one person in our audience, and he was our number one first fan, you know. Like,
but it didn't stay that way. I mean,
no, it didn't.
It was unsafe in there for the last 2 to 3 shows. Like there was not a solid railing. We were a little bit concerned, but like people were packed all the way up the steps, all the way around. But you still had to know. I mean, when the intermission went on and the lights went on, everybody knew what was going down. But you still, like, at a Juxtaposed show, it was about the dance floor. Because at any moment, George was going to start spinning. He was going to expect me to start spinning. And we were going to be entangled. And it was going to be happening. I mean, it was like the energy was right there. But it wasn't just me. Like, George had me on the dance floor to dance with him. But talking about Chris, both of their half-naked selves, like they were a little nucleus. Like he was naked behind the drums, and George was naked behind the mic, and it was like, that was the thing. It was a very physical. You talk about Dion, you talk about his muscles. Well, Chris was like Dion's little brother, and he was talking about muscles, and George was all about handstands on the wall and being naturally like fit and all muscular. There was a lot of muscles and sweat in Juxtapose as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was a sweaty, greasy. It was
rusty, dusty, stinky, crazy.
I don't ever know that it was stinky because it was always too freaking like sexy. People were too self-aware and image-based to like
it
smell bad.
It didn't smell
ever.
Well,
it was very vain.
Maybe musky then, and not
fair enough.
Not in the negative.
Right. For sure. Because there was a lot of that. I mean,
Bouquet.
I do feel. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just